the first time we did this, I forgot to go live, and like we didn't actually have a recording. So anyway, hello everybody. I just checking in and saying hi. And McNasty and I are going to preview the trial, which is coming up on July 9th. And we're also going to get into the financial angle, which is a big thing we've been corresponding about, and which a lot of people have been talking about on the subreddit. So that's sort of the plan for the beginning of the stream. Again, I made like a really long outline with like tons of links and notes, and who knows how much of it we'll get to. But we also have like a compiled list of your questions that you posted in a Reddit thread a few days ago. So how's it going, McNasty? How are you doing tonight?
I am doing great. I just want to make sure, I want to make sure you guys can hear us. Okay. If anybody can drop something in the chat, say hello. I just want to make sure that we are online with everybody.
Yeah, I'm going to go over it. It looks like there's a few people in there. I'm going to go over to YouTube because it's usually a good idea just to like make sure that like, oh, sorry about that. Hey, okay, so yeah, we're live. Okay, and so I see that Charles Flying Angel says, "Hey, Pepinos, can hear you fine. Great. That's always great. It's always good to know that like our audio is working and going out because like sometimes you just never know." So yeah, we have reached that first hurdle, and yeah, things are good. So yeah, I think that's sort of the plan. It's these things are so like interesting because sometimes we have like different things that we kind of want to get to, but like plans like that sort of fall through, and we want to have guests on, I think, eventually, but yeah, it's just sort of difficult in advance of this trial. So
yes, a lot of the guests that we want to have on really don't want to speak in public. That doesn't probably surprise anyone, but because this is Alec Baldwin we're dealing with, and a lot of the guests don't really want to join up and go on the record. So oh, thank you. It sounds like you guys can hear us. I appreciate that.
Yep, got a few people saying that they can't hear. So it looks like, hopefully I'm not like stuttering here. I might have to, because on my screen it looks like I'm sort of frozen, but we'll figure that out in a minute. But yeah, and I think like one of the things that like they must be thinking about is in advance of the trial, like Alec has this fleet of attorneys on retainer, right? And so yeah. I'm sure that like a few of them could peel off and do some quick civil work if it comes to it. So I just think that people are rightfully concerned about what's going on. So
if somebody can send us a message on chat, I just want to make sure that's working as well, because I know you guys might have some questions coming up.
I'm going to remove myself from the stage real quick and then put myself back on because I see myself frozen. Do you see me moving, or am I frozen on your? Just making sure that we're all good. I'm going to remove myself from the stage.
You are frozen, but I didn't know if that's how you look normally. I'm just messing with you.
Okay. Well, it's always something.
Anyway. And this is, and I know, and I apologize, you guys. This is a weird time to do a podcast, but we are obviously, all over the world. Yep. I want to give a shout out to my friend Disney Dreams, who's in Australia, and I just wanted to say hello to her because she and I were talking about Chris Lilly last night. And so you guys just if you can mention in the chat if you can hear it, just kind of let us know. That would be awesome. And hopefully Leo will
can you hear me
frozen anymore.
Yeah, I was thinking about like reloading my StreamYard, but I'm not. Just trying to figure out like what let's see here. Maybe let me leave real quick and come back. I think
you've already left, Leo.
Oh, all right. I'm gonna leave and come back.
Okay, come back. Okay. Hi guys. This is McNasty. If you guys have any questions for me, just let me know. Not a lot going on. Just getting prepared for this trial, which is going to be crazy. So basically what's going to happen today is that Leo has worked at law firms. I have worked in PR for over 10 years. So he's going to we thought it would be very interesting to break down the cost of what things like this costs. Yep. What it costs to have apparently Alec has 10 lawyers. What that costs, and then I'm going to get into, what the PR for something like this costs, because I think you guys are going to be pretty shocked when you hear these numbers. And I think we see you again, Leo. So that's awesome.
It looks like I'm good. I just had to leave and come back. I was just kind of making sure that I did it the right way because I didn't want to totally cut and run and like mess up the stream. So,
anyway. I appreciate that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's like it should be really fun. And we both made some like inquiries, like I know some people in the law world and some people in the PR world, and just to kind of get like a ballpark. And so
the prices have escalated.
Yeah,
obviously. And I think that people are going to be pretty surprised when they find out how much this stuff costs.
Yeah. Yeah, we were just trying to kind of like figure out like what his monthly expenses are and all that sort of stuff. So did you want to start out with like what your ballpark was for like the PR services he might be it sounds like he's definitely engaging.
So it's a little complicated because there's two types of PR. There's, your regular PR right out of the gate. And, for example, a company like, say, Macy's, would hire a PR firm, to write press releases and, get their name out there, and these PR people send it to every single publication that there is. Try to get them, if they have, new products, try to get them, any kind of interviews. He's doing whatever you can. And that usually runs around $50,000 a month. But
Jesus,
there is another level of PR, and that is called crisis PR, which I have also done. And that runs around 80 grand a month. And what I have found so interesting is that if, say that you were Alec Baldwin, you needed to start cutting corners. When he went on George Stephanopoulos, first of all, there's no way on earth that his PR firm would have ever advised him to do that. He centered himself into the story, which probably antagonized prosecutors and lost a lot of public sympathy.
Yep.
He should have never spoken out after the incident. It set the stage for future legal problems, and here we are. So I'm going to go ahead and assume that he's paying. I don't actually know the answer to this. He would be stupid not to pay for crisis PR, but he would be even more stupid to pay for it and then not listen to his PR people, because he's the type of person that seems to think he's smarter than everybody. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So what he did was an absolute mistake in the $80,000 a month, and it's called a retainer. It's called a retainer fee. So I can't quite figure out if he is actually, to cut costs, if he actually got rid of his PR. But somebody is paying to have articles placed in the Daily Mail.
Right.
That those don't come out. There's a lot of fluff pieces. Those don't come out of nowhere. Somebody is paying for those.
For sure.
So I don't know what his PR strategy is here, but if he was paying for crisis PR, I don't know if either he didn't do that or he didn't listen to them, because he did everything wrong, unfortunately, for him.
Yeah, I think like one of the like terms that comes to my mind is sunk cost fallacy. Like he's sort of in already like for a penny, so he's in for a pound. And so it would be super silly for him to not spring for the $50K a month or whatever the minimum would be for PR, because the other thing that I think we'll touch on this a little bit when we get into like the estimate for his legal costs, like PR is a pretty big deal when you are wanting to like influence a jury pool. And so I'm not quite sure how that would work in like New Mexico. Like it's not as big of a pool. So, but it's like something that you're very conscious of, those type of details,
Absolutely. And, when he, I don't want to keep harping back to this. When he did that George Stephanopoulos interview, there's no way somebody that he was paying that told him that was a good idea. So you can fire a client. That's a fireable offense for a client. I don't care if he is paying you $80,000 a month. It's really hard to come back from that, because what he did was he set himself up for his defense. He said he didn't pull the trigger, and I think we were all a little taken aback when he said that on national television.
That was so crazy.
Because for all I know, he paid for this George Stephanopoulos interview. I mean, that's kind of how it works. And he decided to go what we call going rogue. And I just think that he now has we would no PR firm would ever recommend him. You just need to stay quiet, stay out of the limelight. But he felt he needed to get in front of the story. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I just wanted to really briefly, there was a passage in the New York Times Magazine piece, which we've referenced numerous times, where it actually talks about the prosecutor at the time when the Stephanopoulos interview happened, seeing that and like it being a pretty decisive factor. So I'll just read this really quick. Carmack Altwies was watching the show at home in Santa Fe, referencing Stephanopoulos, her fury rising. Here was a suspect in an ongoing criminal investigation seeking to exonerate himself on national television. To her, Baldwin seemed unrepentant, entitled, and maybe even dishonest. He was not under oath, and she had no proof, but she believed that he was lying about not having pulled the trigger. This guy, how dare he, she recalls thinking. There's a dead person because of your actions. As soon as the interview ended, she called her deputy, Jennifer Paget Macias. Did he just waltz himself into charges, she asked? So it's like, yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty clear exactly kind of how that went down.
I'm sorry, it's not funny, but...
And there's a few different questions that some Pepinos had for you about the whole PR thing. Hello Pepino asked, does he pay for crisis PR at $80K and regular PR at $50K? So would it be like a total of like $130 a month, or like is that just like an extra $30K on top for crisis PR? I think this is a question.
So he's definitely paying for PR, because these these stories that are placed into what mostly seems to be the Daily Mail. Those I don't know what kind of shop they're running over at the Daily Mail, but they're like, oh, he's out here with his kids, and then somebody paid to get her into that Hillary into that article. God, what was the name of that?
The Romper article.
The Romper article. Okay, that does not come cheap, you guys.
Yeah.
That is some clever PR person tried to manage to find a buyer, basically, and she, if you want my honest opinion, she used that to bust out her accent again.
Yes.
Please tell me you remember this.
Of course. It's burned into my brain.
Turn it off. And then she's like, oh, hi, you guys. It's like, dude, what are you doing? So,
the little tiny colored weights that she was, oh my God, it was so crazy.
Oh, the the 1 pound weights. Oh, you must, don't please don't overexert yourself, Hillary.
Yeah.
While you're drinking a glass of wine. And then this reality show. So yes, to answer the question, I would say right now he's probably paying $80,000 a month in PR fees right now.
Right. But like when you said 50 and 80, like would those be like two separate firms, or would it probably could go to the same firm?
Same firm.
Okay. Yeah. It probably depends on
it's different. when you do, because every PR firm has, just regular PR, and then you've got crisis PR. And so when you've worked with a firm for a while, you don't want to start switching. Every time you see a feel-good article about the Baldwin family, and you've got a TLC show, you don't get that without paying an insane amount of money to a PR firm, because the whatever PR firm, and I tried to Google this before we came online. I tried to figure out what PR firm he's actually using. I couldn't find it.
Right.
But yeah. So I went back and talked to some of my old coworkers last night, and they said, he's probably paying 50 grand a month, and has been for a while, a very long while. But after the shooting, it probably went up to 80 grand.
Hmm. There's another question by Sherry Baskin that it's sort of interrelated, where she was asking, wouldn't Alec have a trust they cannot touch? And if so, how would they affect his monies to pay for the litigation and settlements? And that was one thing I meant to follow up on. Like in the last stream, we were talking about how OJ moved to Florida. And what I remembered after the stream was that was because Florida has a law specifically about trusts and retirement can't be garnished. So I think that was kind of along those lines. I'm sure he does, because he's got wealth managers, but the question is is that enough?
Leo, I didn't even think about this. Not that we were trying to put together a spreadsheet of this guy's expenses. I didn't even think about that. Yeah. I'm sure he has a financial team working with this. We haven't even talked about that yet. Privately, we haven't even talked about that.
Yeah, the only time I just put a note in the live stream document, and there's so much stuff in there, but I found a 2003 New York Times article that was Pino Balance NYC reposted 3 years ago, where it details very specifically his finances and talks about who his money manager was. And so this is over 20 years ago, but there's one passage in it that was really compelling, that talked about what his wealth was then. And it was just interesting because there's so much speculation about what he's worth now. And I think the ballpark that everybody has sort of arrived at is probably about 60 million. But this article here, I don't know if you guys can see it, but
I can see it. Well, okay. I can see it. And I'm sorry, you guys. I can see it.
Okay, I'm gonna make it a little bit bigger. But anyway, I'll just read one real quick thing. Though Mr. Baldwin would not be specific, and this is a 2003 New York Times article that gets into his finances and how much the divorce cost him and all that stuff. But it says, though Mr. Baldwin would not be specific, he has accumulated a large amount of money, perhaps 20 to 23 million, with about 14 million of that in real estate, according to real estate agents and people close to him. So I thought that was really interesting. And there's a lot of other good details in this article. I'll drop a link to it in the chat, to the Reddit thread.
Obviously real estate is a great investment if you're going to invest in something. And we talked about this a little bit on our last podcast. When he bought that house in, God, where was it? Not Delaware. He right after he shot Helena, he bought a plot of farmland.
Right.
And that is we talked about this in the last podcast. If you don't want somebody, taking your money, the best thing to do is to spend it. And right. in his buying up property is the best way to spend it. And this property, as far as I know, is just sitting there. I don't even know if they've ever been there.
Yeah.
It's in Vermont, by the way. Yes. Yeah, okay. Thank you, Tish. I don't even know if they've ever been there. But yeah, that is the way that you don't, if they can't take money from you if you don't have it. and the smartest way to do that. So he's obviously got a financial planner, like you said, which I do not know how much that costs.
Yeah, I mean, I think like a lot of the big firms out there, and it probably depends on, because a certain amount of money, it probably changes, but like a lot of the hedge funds, they clip like 20% of the profits and like 1 or 2% of the principal. So it's a hefty expense to have a good wealth manager and in an accountant and all that sort of stuff. So that's something we didn't even really like get into in the notes, but like, so I don't know if you want to get into like the ballpark of like the legal costs, which is like such a morass. I mean, like, it's a big spread on the figure, but did you want to move on, or did you have anything else to touch on with the PR stuff? I'm just going to see if there's any other PR comments, but
so I am going to go ahead, because I talked to two of my my former coworkers last night, and they both said, no, at this point, this is no longer a frilly press release. This guy has actual problems, and he is this is like desperation right now, and that usually costs $80,000 a month. He went from probably $60,000 a month, putting out these crappy things about trying to get his wife out in the press. But once once he ended up shooting someone, that now we're dealing with crisis PR. And basically the downside in speaking to the media while being the subject of a criminal investigation, there is no upside to that. There is no upside to that. There is only a downside. So I don't even know. He could have fired them. I mean, for all I know, because no crisis PR firm would be like, why don't you go and call George Stephanopoulos and get out there and blame the victim, say that the gun fired by itself, that you don't know what happened. It's not your problem. That there's no way an $80,000 a month crisis PR firm would suggest that. So we could possibly wipe that out, but he would be stupid for doing that. But apparently he's either paying for it and not listening to them, or he got rid of them.
Yeah, there's a couple Pepinos like mentioned other things that had happened in that same time frame, like the roadside press conference, and I think the Romper article was around that time period. But so like, what exactly does like a crisis PR firm do? They like kind of manage like the media placement and talk to people in the press, or like what's that consist of generally?
I'm going to be straightforward with you. They tell them to shut up and only put press releases out. Don't, like, literally, it doesn't even, like, just shut up. They put press releases out to the media. They do not let their clients speak to the media. And everything is crafted. Right. But the one thing you do not do is you do not let your clients, unless they have extensive media training, go on somebody like George Stephanopoulos and start running your mouth and then start blaming the victim. You blaming the gun. There is no the gun, the FBI forensic report suggested the gun would not have discharged without its trigger being pulled. That is going to be that is a really hard hole that you've dug yourself into.
Yeah, it's all self-inflicted too with Alec. Like it always seems to be that way. Like it's, he he like digs his own grave with all this stuff. There's a question from Smaller Pepino about whether or not he'll have to give a promissory note or down payment for the settlements he's already signed off on. My impression from reading that passage in the New York Times Magazine, which is like the only thing that we've really heard about it because it's confidential, is because like Matthew Hutchins and his attorney were talking about having to like look into the possibility of pursuing it. Sounds like it might be unsecured, which is typically the case for these type of settlements, especially with somebody with like a high net worth individual like Baldwin. But and so that's what they're sort of trying to figure out, I think, is like whether or not they want to go after him or whether or not they want to work with him to get the money, like whether it's going to be worth the time.
Which they definitely, I mean, if there's money to be made, they're going to work with, they're not going to turn down, an $80,000 a month retainer. But again, if he's not listening, all he had to do was keep his mouth shut, and he went and did everything wrong. The PR firm isn't going to turn him down, but they're also, that goes against every single thing that I guarantee you he was told not to do.
Disney Dreams comments about Baldwin bragging in an interview that he needed to leave $45,000 in cash at a minimum to Hillary when he dies. So I'm guessing that's like the short-term petty cash expense. So, that's a pretty good indication that like the like sort of incidental expenses are $45,000 a month, or maybe half that. I mean, I'm just sort of guessing what that means, but that's like, boy, when we start like looking at some of these other numbers for like what he's paying and upkeep of houses and all this sort of stuff, it's kind of gets mind blowing. Like, yeah.
I think, hey, Disney Dreams, by the way, thank you for waking up this early. Disney Dreams is all the way out in Australia. He actually said he wanted to leave. I think it was 45 million.
Oh yeah, that's what. Okay, yeah. Disney Dreams corrected themselves. Yeah.
Oh, sorry about that. I just think that that was said before he, accidentally, which it was an accident. He didn't shoot this, he didn't shoot Helena on purpose.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
No one's gonna, argue that. But the thing I wanted to sort of talk to you about today, Leo, is the way, I don't want to kind of get away from what we're talking about. Alec is not looking very good right now.
Yeah.
As in physically, as in like this guy is shuffling his feet, and I hate to, it cringes me to discuss this, but I just lost my father to dementia, and I watched his father die of dementia too. I'm not saying that he's got dementia, but he is not getting any younger. And this apparently is speeding up his aging process. I would not be surprised if he shows up on the 10th in a walker. I wouldn't be surprised.
Harvey Weinstein style. Yeah, I was trying to find baby. I was trying to find pictures because there was like some pepinos that posted pictures of him, I think when he was traveling to like New Mexico or something, and he looked like super disheveled. And I always sort of wonder if it's like a put on with him since he's an actor. And when he did the Stephanopoulos interview, there was something going on with, he was doing something with his baggy eyes and stuff, trying to make himself look haggard. But yeah,
haggard is the perfect word for this. I just it's amazing how fat. How old is he, by the way? Do you know?
I think he's like maybe 65 is my guess. I'll look it up real quick.
That's not really that old.
No, not really.
Somebody to be shuffling because
66. Yeah.
Oh geez. So you can tell people that are starting to their mind is starting to degenerate because they start shuffling their feet and their arms like don't know like what to do, and they usually need some kind of support, in which every time we see him it's one of his kids' walker. And I'm just curious as to is you don't think he's going to pull a Harvey Weinstein on the 10th, do you?
I wouldn't put it past him. Like maybe not to like that degree, but like he's just the whole thing. I don't know. He's such a loose cannon that I feel like he could, but I also think that, well, he's so like, him and Hilaria have this like amazing ability to like not understand how things are gonna hit with the public. Like the romper article, somebody made a great comment earlier that I forgot to highlight, saying that Hilaria thought that the romper article was like going to be her revenge against the subreddit because she mentioned us like a bunch of times, and it just totally backfired. And so it's like, how do they not see like how bad they come off? It's really kind of incredible.
Well, it makes me, go again, maybe, just maybe, he's got to start cutting costs because his kids are in private school, right? Is that accurate?
I'm not 100% sure on that, but they have to be. I mean,
That's not cheap.
yeah.
He's got this apartment up at the Devonshire.
Yeah.
He's had 7 surrogate children. Is it 7
6,
or
I
6?
think, right?
Yeah, 6 surrogate children.
Which is expensive each time, yeah.
Yeah, that I don't even know what the cost is on that.
Yep.
7 surrogate children. He is paying for them to go to school, and he actually seems like the kind of guy that's really cheap. I don't know why, but every time I see him in these baggy pants,
yeah,
it's like, bro, why aren't you going to see a tailor, man? He's in these baggy pants, shuffling along the sidewalk, and the only thing he has is to hold on to this baby carriage. I actually feel bad for the guy, but what is? I am absolutely curious to know, what is he going to do walking into this courtroom, because I saw a picture the other night. He was at a movie premiere the other night. Did you see that?
Yeah, and there was some article, I think it was in the Mail actually, about how he wasn't at some function with like the Biebers or something like that, or I can't remember exactly what it was, but yeah.
Well, it's all he knows. This is all he knows is being a public figure.
Yeah.
That's all he knows. And there's he doesn't know anything else, but unfortunately, if you're aging as quickly as he is, the roles are going to start going away. Plus, you're probably going to, go to jail. That's not going to look, it's not great for your career, especially since it happened on a movie set. But he doesn't know anything else. And
one of the things I keep coming back to is, whenever you read like a long form profile of him, his father comes up a ton, and especially like in older stuff, he's such an outsized influence on Alec. And I think that Alec probably feels some type of way because his dad died like in 1983, like right when he was getting off the ground. So I'm sure there's like got to be like a huge psychological thing there. And one of the things that was in that Alec wrote about in a tribute to his father was like how his dad, like they were barely scraping by, and like Alec and one of his brothers were asking for like tennis rackets, and his dad at first didn't want to get them, but eventually did. And then he was talking about how his dad had like these shoes with like $half size holes in the soles, and like it's like he's like describing himself right now. So that's when KDO, I believe it, said that it's interesting that I think it's just have a look might be an act. I kind of do think it might be an affectation, because I think that he's like in a weird way sort of imitating his dad, his long suffering father, who he has like this weird saintly image of in his head. It's like a weird form of projection, I think.
I mean, we all, I hate to say this, but I think we all kind of do.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, with my father, his parents, grew up during the Depression, where they saved everything, like every freaking thing. And it's, you pass that down. You just pass that down to your children.
Yep.
But the situation with, his finances is, I think I think Hilaria came in and just, I hate to even call her that. I'm just call her Hillary.
Yeah.
she just came in and was just like, hey, I'm wondering if she tried to dictate his career. You don't think she would do that, do you?
You know,
She obviously wants money. I mean, obviously, she went on Extra, which that didn't test well, so she's not on there anymore. And then Griftsmith happened, and she lost every one of her sponsorships. But the fact that he trusts her makes me think that we're not dealing with a full deck here.
I think he's super codependent, and so I think he, regardless of whether or not she had like an official capacity in terms of his career, like she had to be a huge influence. And I just wanted to mention like a couple of Pepinos, like Veritas Forever and Hello Pepino mentioned that the Baldwins do have the kids all in private schools in Brooklyn, and Hello Pepino says 4 kids at a private Spanish immersion school. So it's like, geez. Smaller Pepino had a comment about how he also demanded to ride horses when they began filming again. Make that make sense. Yeah, there's an article recently about that, which I have, which I can pull out here in a minute. But yeah, just kind of going through the comments and
dude, he can barely walk. It looks like he weighs 900 pounds. What is he? And he's demanding to. Okay, so let's cut to the chase here. This whole movie is him trying to do a Western. I guess, I guess he wanted to do a Western. He probably saw Yellowstone. It's like, you know what? I can do this too.
Yeah.
Except for one problem. It would take a crane to put me on top of a horse strong enough to hold my body weight. And he has absolutely no clue what it comes to when firing guns. And which
is really weird because like his, like I think one of the things we're getting to here is like his dad was a huge fan of Westerns and he's always talked about wanting to make a Western, yet he has like no familiarity with guns, even though his dad was a rifle instructor. And
yeah,
it's so weird. You know what I just looked up really quick is I was curious, like how much older or younger do you think Kevin Costner is than Alec Baldwin?
Oh my God, that is a freaking good question. Pepinos?
I just looked it up so I know the answer.
Pepinos, do your thing. We need to know how much older. He seems a lot older.
Costner does?
His Alec's gait?
Yeah.
When I say gait, I mean meaning like he shuffles along.
And people have mentioned that he had hip surgery, but that was a while ago. I'm sorry?
Okay. Kevin Costner does not shuffle along. Like his gait, like as in GAIT.
Right.
Kevin Costner can still walk from point A to point B without shuffling along and not needing a stroller to prop him up.
Yeah, he just put out a big Western. I mean, he's been doing tons of projects. I guess it flopped pretty hard, but like he's still doing like, real big, wide open movies. And to me, like I was just thinking about like they must be roughly contemporaries since they both came up right about the same time. Like Dances with Wolves was like 91, and that's Hunt for Red October was 1990. So they both kind of got on at the same time roughly, but that doesn't mean
they must be the same age. So I'm looking at
yeah, I looked it up and I was like kind of surprised because
are they? Well, it looks like are they the same age?
Well, Costner's 69 and Baldwin's 66. So Costner's 3 years older, even though he looks like 10 years younger to me. And I think maybe he's got
to be honest, with the crap that the unfortunate stuff I went through with my father, you can tell by the gait, the way somebody walks, how old they are. And Costner does not do that. Costner is perfectly fine riding a horse. And by the way, what happened with that? Did Alec want to get on a horse? And was the horse like, no, we're not doing this?
Yeah, I've got it. I've got the article here. There's a Vanity Fair article. I can.
It's not funny. I'm sorry.
I'm glad that you mentioned it again because I wanted to get to it when we got a second. And it's like a really funny article here. Alec Baldwin wanted to ride a horse, but Ruff's safety advisor said no.
I'm sure the horse was like, hell no.
Yeah. It's so crazy because, you just have to keep reminding yourself, this is after he killed a woman and more like mortally wounded the director who was directing again. But what this is a recent Variety piece actually, and I think it maybe is quoting anyway. One of the safety officers on the second Rush shoot, Paul Jordan, is apparently set to testify in the upcoming manslaughter trial, saying that the actor resisted advice not to ride a horse at full gallop, and he's quoted Jordan.
I'm sure. Could you imagine?
Yeah, and Jordan is quoted.
I don't even know. Can you imagine how much Alec must weigh? I mean, I don't know into semantics, but he's not exactly 120 pounds getting on a horse.
And it makes a big deal if you don't know how to ride a horse. Like it just makes it like so much more complicated. But Jordan said there's a little bit of yelling at times, insisting he could do certain things that everybody else felt he couldn't do. Jordan testified in a pretrial interview, and prosecutors want to use his testimony to help establish a pattern of recklessness. So it's like just another.
Is that what he said?
Yeah, that Jordan was quoted as saying, there's a little bit of yelling at times, insisting that he could do certain things that everyone else felt he couldn't do. And then he goes on to talk about how he thought this was going to be an easy shoot because of what happened at the last one. He was like, actually, it was like really difficult because Baldwin,
why does this not surprise me?
Yeah,
he does not listen to other people. Like, it makes me sad. I've never felt bad for a horse before, but I do remember seeing shots from this where they used tell me I dreamed this. They were using a hoist, like a thing where they hoisted him up onto this horse, and it took like 8 people to get him on the saddle. And he wanted to go full gallop on this thing. They could barely even get him onto the saddle.
Yeah.
Talk about delusional, man.
It's not what he had in his mind at all. And Small Rapino had a really good question. Does Baldwin extended family also depend on him financially? And one of the things that I spent a little bit of time like a week or two ago looking into the whole Haley Bieber, Justin Bieber situation, and like that subreddit is that's pretty wild. But the people there, apparently one of the things that happened when they got married is that Justin paid off I think it's Billy's tax bills or some stuff like that. So I know that some of his brothers aren't doing well financially, so I wouldn't be surprised if he has over the years. But I don't know. Do you have any insight on whether or not Baldwin supports any other extended family?
Yes, I do. But it involves Hilaria's family, and I can't really get into that.
Yeah,
right now. But this is so funny. So Smaller Pepino had a very good point. He's dead weight. Which I mean, yeah, I know I saw this. I saw it's like I'm a swimmer, and they had one of those things that hoists people up, and they put him on this horse. I felt bad for the horse. So he is, a quote unquote friend of PETA. But he wanted to go full gallop on this horse, and they said, "You're not doing that. We have, just because you are, you're not going to do that." So a Hoyer lift, yes. Sorry, guys.
I'm gonna try to find footage of that. That sounds hilarious.
Hey, can you give me a quick second? I gotta run out. I gotta run really quick. Just give me 2 seconds, you guys.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I just to give you an idea of the other things that we're going to cover here. Eventually, we're going to get into the legal stuff. I talked to some people that are sort of plugged into the whole big law world, which I have never really had that much interaction with. But the big white shoe law firms like Quinn Emanuel. So we're going to talk about what I have heard and what talk to other people about what the ballpark is for what he's going to be laying out for the Russ trial. It just as a rough estimate, but it's still kind of a staggering number. And we've just also got some details about what the costs are for maintaining some of his homes, and what he's been trying to do with like the real estate stuff. And we can also go real deep on like the divorce stuff with Kim Basinger, and where he might have been left off after that whole ordeal. And yeah, I've also got like some material on Alex Spiro, which I learned that it's actually pronounced Spiro, not Spiro. I kind of did some looking about him, so I also want to hit that if we have time today. And we also have like a bunch of your requested topics from Pepinas that we're going to get to. A lot of them are sort of stuff that overlaps with what we were already talking about.
Hey, I'm back.
Okay, great.
Yes. Yeah. So I am dying to hear the situation with, okay. So we've kind of gone over 80 grand a month. There's no question that's what he's paying for PR a month. Let's talk about Alex Spiro. I am dying to hear this.
Yeah. So, I tried to like dig around a little bit and just kind of get more of a feel for who he is as an attorney. Just to give you like the lead item, the ballpark that I came to after sort of my own estimate based on looking at like how much revenue the partners make for Quinn Emanuel, which is the firm he works for, and just talking to some other people in the big law world, is the number I kept hearing is like it's either high 7 figures or low 8 figures. So somewhere like a spread of like around $8 to $15 million is what the estimate is.
Oh my God.
For the Rusk lawyer fees. And I tried to be, we always try to be conservative with these numbers, but I looked at like the 2023 revenue of Quinn Emanuel, which is actually blowing up right now. And the 2024 revenue is going to be really interesting when it comes out, because they keep doing like huge year over year numbers, but they just did over $2 billion in revenue last year. They're one of the biggest white shoe law firms, and they averaged around $1.9 million in revenue per partner, which is interesting when you figured that Alec has 10 lawyers, wow. Right? And so that 10 times like 1.9 is 19 million bucks. I mean, and if you assume that each lawyer puts in roughly like a year of billable hours, I mean, but it's a little bit hinky, and it gets a little bit more into the weeds, like if you're really going to try to figure out the billing. But I did talk to some like very well-placed sources that actually know Spiro. And so I'm pretty confident that that's like in the range. I mean, it's always possible that there could be some other arrangement, or maybe he's getting a good deal for some reason. Not that like anyone would really want to rep him. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if anybody has like a reaction to that, but I also have like a lot of material that I'd like to get to on Spiro at some point.
I don't have a calculator on me, but let's assume he's paying 80 grand a month for crisis PR. Standard, totally standard, which is probably on the low end, because this is, I don't live in New York, and I live in Atlanta. 80 grand a month for crisis PR. He's got to pay 10 lawyers from Alex Spiro, from Spiro's firm. He's got to pay the school. He's got to pay the school for however many kids he has now. I lost count.
Yeah.
He's got to pay for Hillary's, I don't know, whatever the heck it is she's having done to her face.
Oh my God.
The nannies, which they must have a ton.
How much do the nannies cost a month? Like,
I don't know. That I don't know. Maybe a Filipino out there knows.
10 grand. I'm just going to put I'm just kind of ballparking it as we go along on a calculator. So,
Spiro also reps Elon Musk.
He did, yeah.
Forever. That is freaking interesting.
Yeah, he also repped Megan Thee Stallion in the Tory Lanez case.
God.
And he also has represented like Jay-Z. He's he's definitely like a clout chasing lawyer, and as Disney Dreams mentioned, he's arrogant and abrasive as Alec, and that is one of the things that's going to be really interesting to monitor, is that ego clash potential there. Yeah,
totally. And we're gonna so So we are obviously going to circle back after the opening statements arise, but as far as the financials go, he don't forget he had 6 kids through in vitro with what they had somebody else giving birth to their children. They're called surrogates.
Yeah.
And that I think that runs around $100,000 per kid. So I think between what we've discussed, if it's accurate on what you Google, they said he's worth 60 million. I don't know if they're counting that as the houses that he owns.
Right. I think it includes the real estate for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. But that if you guys ever wanted to know how to blow through $60 million, this is how it's done, son. You just it can't be cheap, because I know the surrogates the nannies live there in the house, like the nannies. That's not like private information. That's because people have been posting I don't know if I don't know what platform it was on, but it's like, looking for nannies in New York City. You have to sleep with the children. You have to get them up in the morning. You got to get them ready for bed. You're going to be bathing them. You're going to be feeding them. That's what we're looking for. The person the wife is very hands-on, but if you don't mind sleeping with the children, in the same room, that's what we're really looking for. That doesn't come cheap either.
Just like throwing like like some real lowball figures into a calculator for like lawyers and property tax and nannies. Like I'm at like a burn rate of like 250 grand a month, and like we haven't really even gotten to like a lot of different stuff. I mean, like it's just not sustainable. I mean, even if you're, you have to be like a billionaire to be spending that kind of money.
That is so amazing, because I did the math and I came up with 225 grand a month.
Mm-hmm.
That is not going to be sustainable for him. And I only bring this up because the other night somebody posted on our subreddit, he was doing a red carpet walk. Like I think it was last night. All he has is his career. He cannot make it. Hillary's not going to make any money for him, obviously. So I think this leads us to kind of where we were going. They have a reality show on TLC.
Yeah.
I think that everybody would be in agreement with us that is the last stop, baby. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I think like I want to say for some reason the number of like 150 grand an episode or something like that is what they're getting paid, which is like, when you start thinking about these numbers, like that's not even enough to cover his minimums, And I also wanted to touch really briefly on a comment that Sherry Baskin made about how Spyro's was representing Elon Musk in like a Delaware case and the Twitter case, and he was. But like that's one of the really interesting things is that Elon and Spyro had like a disagreement, and Spyro got canned, and so that sort of like a potential preview of what could happen with Baldwin. I don't know if the personalities are like exactly the same, but just big personalities like Musk and Baldwin with a big personality lawyer might not be a great fit. Smaller Pepino also commenting about Hillary's mental health treatments, but like that plastic surgery stuff, I mean, I really don't know, but like it just seems like it's got to be a huge cash thing. Yeah.
I that stuff doesn't run cheap.
Yeah.
But
Hello Pepino mentions like she saw something about how New York nanny agency, something about $80K per year with health benefits for full-time nannies, which is like, and Veritas also mentioning that some people don't believe the whole 6-time surrogate story, which, yeah, I mean, I think it's possible that there's some other stuff going on there. But like another thing that we didn't even really factor into that whole cost is that didn't they do some whole lobbying thing to get surrogacy legal in New York? So like the political donations and all that sort of stuff, and like going out to eat every. I mean, it's just like that sort of stuff that we're not really even thinking about. Also adds up, you know.
I don't know if they lobbied for it, but whatever they did worked because.
Yeah.
Coincidentally, they were the first person to have a surrogate born in New York City. You've got to be kidding me. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, sure is awfully convenient with all those different breadcrumbs. Veritas Forever also saying that like the kids' school tuition runs for like $36,000 to $48,000 a year, depending on the age of the student. Like, just think of like all these numbers piling up, like whatever it is, like 40,000 times.
Hold on, say that again. What?
Veritas Forever said that the kids' school tuition runs $36,000 to $48,000 a year, depending on age of student, which sounds just based on like private schools.
That sounds accurate. I just never thought about it.
I mean, that's 40,000 times 7. You know, that's
oh my goodness.
Yeah, $280,000.
Yeah, that sounds absolutely accurate for a New York school.
Yeah, it's so hard to comprehend.
I never even factored that in to
to
this budget we're putting together. That is insane.
Yeah, Smaller Pepino had a comment. There's people discussing like whether or not Baldwin will get convicted, and I was like pretty sure. I was with you, Smaller Pepino, and I still pretty much am. Like I think there's a pretty good likelihood that he will be convicted. But like after reading up a little bit about Spyro, it's kind of odd because I'm pretty predisposed to like not like him just based on his client roster and sort of the way that he comes off in public. But like in listening to some interviews that he did, this is sort of weird to say, but like he sort of comes down like on a lot of the same, like we have a pretty similar philosophy about like the way that the system works. And I think that's because he just doesn't believe in like a lot of the different sort of aspects of like jury consultants is like one good example. Like people pay like millions of dollars to get jury consultants to help them pick a jury. And Spyro's just like, I don't believe in them, and so he's really unconventional. And so I think, it's really tough to predict what he'll do. And he won that that Thailand diver case for Musk, like that defamation case, which Musk was like dead to rights on that. Like somehow Spyro, just kind of like pulled out like a better narrative in that. So it's like, it's a little bit easier to win like a civil case because the standard of proof is a lot different. But I don't know.
Alec lost his civil case. I don't know I don't want to say the word loss. He was like throwing. I am still absolutely curious how much money he had to pay Matthew Hutchins in the civil case, because obviously he settled high and fast.
Yeah, no
question. I'm not even going to sit here and try to throw out a figure. I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean it's got to be a big number.
But did you say? I think we talked about this last week. Did you say he didn't pay his first installment?
Well, I don't know if it was the first installment. It wasn't exactly clear, but I read that passage from the New York Times Magazine article that said that he's late in paying Hutchins, so they're trying to figure out whether or not to pursue him. So yeah, he's not coughing up the money, which is like a real. To me, that's a sign that like just reads like this guy must be desperate for money, because you just don't do that, especially in advance of a trial where you're on trial for killing the guy's wife. Like you would pay the guy if you had the money right now. And I think it's just got to be a pretty big number, I think. And so, we just don't really have that much information. We don't know like what the installment amount is, and it also sounds like it's not just Baldwin, but also like the production company or something like that. So there's a lot of moving parts.
Unfortunately it was his production company.
Yeah.
But the thing is that this TLC thing came in, which is horrible. I mean, the Alec Baldwin we've all, grown up with. Are you like, you're going on a TLC to do a reality show with 7 screaming kids that nobody wants to watch? This is the nail in the coffin, in my opinion, because he must be, I think we can both agree, Leo, there is no way on earth he would do this if he did not have to.
Do like go to trial or not pay
to do a TLC reality.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's like the one place where they can get like that kind of money easily, like, because he probably does okay from like doing convention signings, but like that's not on the scale.
I don't think he does that well at convention signings. Yeah. First of all, what is he doing there? He was a major movie star. I don't know if people just finally got tired of his politics, but he definitely after he married Hillary, that was his downfall. But I don't know. The fact that he's doing a TLC dude, he did a commercial for it. A TLC, nobody wants to see 7 wild kids running around and a wife that thinks that she's Spanish yelling at them, and they don't even like her in the first place. Nobody wants to see that. Like, you must be desperate for money at that point.
I mean, it's the thing that like really stuck out to me is when I was trying to look and see if TLC had mentioned it at all, and I was going through their Instagram feed, which is, I think the first time I've ever been through TLC's Instagram feed.
Oh my God, I love you so much for doing that, by the way.
And it was like every other show on there was like so funny, like in contrast to the Baldwins. It's all like funny. MILF Manor 2, like My 600-Pound Life, and like Little People. It's all stuff like that, like wall to wall. And then it's like the Baldwin. So of course it's a freak show, right? Like that's what the whole appeal must be, right? Is to like, look at my nutty fake Spanish wife and my crazy kids. I mean, I think that's going to be what it's going to have to be all about. But
dude, how do you go from being the star of Hunt for Red October to moving to a reality show that has a show called Milf Manor? Yes. I mean, let's call a spade here. This guy I think he's broke, dude.
I think he's definitely like squeezed for cash, and that's why, he's trying to sell the Hamptons thing. Like it was 30 million, now it's 20 million. And even when, like, just to really touch on this, because I did a little bit of looking into like what the like bare minimum of like property tax and upkeep is on those kind of houses. Like, and my understanding is like Suffolk County has an even higher base rate than other parts of New York City. So like, just a bare minimum estimate.
Is Suffolk County, is that the Hamptons?
I think so. That's what I Googled it earlier, but I'm not super familiar with like counties, or I'm in Alaska.
And I'm definitely not familiar with the Hamptons. So.
Yeah. I've never been.
My Southern girl, I don't know anything about that, but do tell, please.
Yeah. Right. And Sweet and Low mentioned like, he has to pay for upkeep of all his residents. And so I just looked into, like, in my notes here, I just have like a couple short items. Like the Post also reported in 2020 that Alec was quietly trying to sell the Sky Dungeon, the Greenwich Village place. And he bought that in 2011 for $11.7 million. So, I mean, like that's gotta be a pretty good chunk of change too, if he needs it. Like he has like, probably about $30 million or so that he can get liquid from those things, but who knows whether or not he still got like any sort of mortgage on them. But just like the property tax and fees,
there's no way. No, I'm sure he paid that. No, there's no way he's still paying a mortgage on that.
Yeah, but just doing like just using like a real basic property tax calculator and looking at like there's other listings in that building that say the fees and taxes are roughly $2.81 a square foot.
Oh, could you imagine what the HOA fees probably are?
And this is like low ball, by the way. Like this is like the bare minimum, but Baldwin's unit is 4137 square feet, so over 4,000 square feet. So just using like the low ball estimate, that's like $11,600 just in taxes and fees for this Sky Dungeon. $11,000 a month. That's crazy. And then the Hamptons place is probably appraised at like twice that value. And because it's in the more expensive county, it's got to be like at least $25,000-$30,000 a month in taxes and fees for the Hamptons place, which is just basically sitting there, right? I mean, nobody's renting that from him. Are they?
I mean, are they still are they still going there? Like, are they still on the weekends driving up there? Like, I've never sold a house, so I don't know how this works. Are they still driving up there and hanging out by their pool that's not secured? How does this work exactly?
Yeah, I mean that's a great point. Like somebody's got to be like doing like upkeep on it and like doing like house sitting or something like that. But I mean, like I don't know because I don't really follow their social media stuff that much, but I haven't seen them there in it seems like a long time. And Rempire State of Mind has a good question about whether or not nannies are mandated reporters in New York, and if so, does that negate an NDA? I don't happen to know.
So I can this okay. So the nannies are all signed to NDAs. And the only way that they can break that an NDA can be broken if there are laws being broken, for example, child pornography, for example. And apparently it's a very fine line because we've all seen Hillary's Instagram. Apparently what she's doing is totally illegal. But I just want you guys to know that, the nannies are all signed to NDAs. But
wasn't there one nanny that posted like a reel or something like that of her with the kids, and it was speculated that she didn't have an NDA because she's the only one that's done that? Or I don't know that we were. I just remember something like that.
So the as far as I know, the nannies are signed to an NDA.
Right.
But and pretty much everybody that works for them are signed to NDAs. I really don't want to get into this, but
yeah, you don't have to.
People are worried about the children. There are people that work for them that are worried about the children, and they didn't know where the hell else to go. So they came to me and said, we don't know what to do. This is not acceptable. It's not appropriate, and we really care about these kids.
That was a subject that a number of different Pepinos wanted to hear you touch on, so I think it's.
I can't. I wish I could, but
we covered like just the gist, which is probably enough for people to get sort of an idea of what's going on.
Yeah, and I want you guys to just hang tight because this is not over yet.
Yeah.
Because we just there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, and not everybody is on tap with them having a reality show.
Yeah.
So I just want y'all to hang tight because this could get really, really weird.
One of the things that I just occurred to me is in the request thread, consider the pretzel asked about the behind the scenes of running the subreddit, and then somebody else asked generic throwaway 6311 asked if there's going to be any rule changes during the trial. I don't think that we've discussed anything, but is there anything that you had in the back of your mind about what we might do during the trial for any potential rule changes or changing up for the sub?
I don't think so. I mean, Leo and I are, running the sub, the best as we can. And hopefully we're going to have, more live discussions because, they're going to do, jury selection on the 9th.
Yep.
The 10th is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Leo, the 10th is the day of the opening statements.
That's correct. That's what it's scheduled. Yep.
Okay. So Leo and I haven't actually told Leo this, but we are going to go live that night because we're going to have a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
there's not really her faking her 7 pregnancies. That's not really what we're going to be focusing on at this moment.
Right.
But we are definitely going to try to, because we're all going to have a lot to talk about after we see because this is a trial that is unprecedented.
Yeah.
I have never seen an actor of this caliber with this hubris that is going to go on. He's going to go on the stand, right?
It's been a lot of speculation about that, and just knowing his personality, he kind of has to. He's just going to,
Do we know he's going on the stand? Yeah. And he is going to play, and he's going to do it perfectly. But it all comes down to the fact that I hate to say this, I was working last night with a Colt 45. My boyfriend is a huge gun person.
A gun, not the 40 of malt liquor. Is that right?
Yeah, no. If I had one, I would probably be drinking that. So he's I don't even know we had a Colt 45 in our house. He busts that out and he's like, "Let me explain to you something. This gun cannot be fired without pulling the trigger. Period. The only way that this gun can be fired," and he showed me the whole 9 yards, is if it's fully loaded and you have enough force to pull the hammer back with as much, even if you did that with as much strength as you have, it probably still wouldn't fire. There's no way that the trigger he did not have his finger on the trigger, his fat finger, by the way, which somebody posted a picture of his hands.
Yeah.
His hands, he's got these giant fingers. There is no way on earth that he did not pull the trigger on this gun. Period. Leo, what do you think? We are back to square one. Is it different because it's a movie set? Because if you can't, dude, you cannot. If you tried to go into a range, and I was talking to my boyfriend about this, and you tried to do a cross draw with a 45, they would throw you out so fast. It is so dangerous to do that. You would never be allowed in this shooting range. You don't do a cross draw with a 45 caliber weapon. There's no way. And the only thing I can explain is that he was not listening to the people that were trying to explain that to him.
Yeah, I mean, I think when I was watching a stream earlier, like with some really dry lawyer talk about like the different types of evidence and like the 404B stuff, which is like the prior bad acts, and what's going to come in is a lot of the circumstantial stuff, like the fact that he had a disagreement with Joel Souza directly before that the fatal shooting, where Souza
he did.
Yes, and Souza like just wanted him to just do like a very slow, controlled draw, and Baldwin wanted to just blast. And the other thing too is like you have to keep in mind is this was like blocking. This is like rehearsal. It's not like they're actually shooting. And so there's just like a number of factors like that like I think people are sort of really focused on like the exact proximate cause of like whether or not he pulled the trigger, all that sort of stuff. But it's more about like the entire scope and what his state of mind is. That's one of the biggest elements of the offense, really the element of the offense to be decided when you look at those jury instructions I posted a couple weeks ago, is like, was he acting in a reckless or criminally negligent way? And when you look at like all the different, like all the pieces matter with this. And so when you look at the argument with Souza, the way that he was rushing people around, the way you see the other footage of him taking pot shots, a lot of the other stuff that we've touched on, it paints a pretty clear picture in my mind. I just always sort of reserve judgment, because there's maybe something I'm not thinking of, but like having seen like a number of other lawyers comment on it, I think there's just like so many different things that are going to hang him. And like the Stephanopoulos interview, and there's like some confusion there. Like one of the things that we were talking about is like it's still not clear to me, or I think you, like who actually handed him the gun, but like that sort of stuff is, I think.
Hey, why is there so much confusion over this? Because that's a big, excuse my language, that is a big fucking deal. Who handed him the gun and why are they not? When you pull the trigger on a Colt 45 and it goes off, you're gonna know you just shot somebody. And you're going to remember who handed you that gun. What is the problem here? Why are they lying about this?
I don't know if like they're lying, but I think it sort of speaks to like the general vibe on the set where it was so chaotic, because of, Alec and his producer buddies paying everybody like, the minimum, and there are things like people walked off like the day before because of like hotel issues. Some people say that it tied into safety stuff. But there's just like a number of different things that happened. It was like almost like a sort of like a drumbeat of different things they're leading up to. And the other thing that you just mentioned, like when you're talking about how it's so dangerous to cross draw like a revolver like that. Well, it's dangerous if you're in a shooting range or if you're in a movie set with somebody like directly in front of you, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, if it's dangerous at a range and you got people there that are experts, and they would never allow you to do a cross draw. What was he thinking?
Yeah,
he must not have been paying attention to what he was trying to do. And did they even give him any instructions? Like, you can't just. I mean, you understand these people at the range are like, you cannot do a cross draw. That is too dangerous.
Right.
And he was just bumbling around doing that all day. Like, what?
Yeah, I really need to re-listen to Joel Souza's testimony because I've just sort of picked through it. But like he has like a really interesting account. Even like the stuff he was saying at the hospital was like very fascinating. But one thing I wanted to touch on is I posted like a link to like the Vanity Fair article from last year. That's like a profile of Alex Spiro and his representation of Elon Musk. And I wanted to post that because Sherry Baskin had a couple of really good comments. She mentioned that Spiro was representing Musk in a deposition in Texas a few months back. So saying that like they still have a relationship. But if you read that Vanity Fair article, like Spiro was kind of gearing up to be Elon Musk's like second, in command kind of when he took over Twitter. Like he was right there in the thick of it. He was sort of the hatchet man. And at some point the relationship broke down to where like he got sort of kicked out of his role in the whole Twitter takeover. And he was also, I guess at first he was litigating, like trying to get it so that Elon Musk didn't have to like go through with his promise of buying Twitter for like some ungodly amount of money, like $44 billion. And Sherry also has a comment about the pedo case where Elon's defense was, and like, this is accurate. Elon basically said that the pedo guy was the term, it was pedo guy meant something different in South Africa. It was just like I don't know how people bought it, but I think one of the differences here is like that was in, I want to say, California or something like that, where I can't remember where they held the trial, but like, I think New Mexico, like people aren't going to be quite so swayed by like a white shoe law firm guy, but Disney Dreams also asking about like, then there's had a few questions about this, like, will Alec have to pay Matthew directly or through insurance? And I don't know the details of that.
Well, apparently he's not paying him through either.
Yeah,
and that is effing crazy to me.
I just wanted to reread that quote again because there's some details in there that we were sort of wondering about.
Disney Dreams, by the way, I love you so much.
Yeah, lots of great, just amazing comments tonight, keeping us on track. But I just want to reread this passage real quick about in the New York Times Magazine piece. Matthew Hutchins' lawyer, Brian Panish, told me that Baldwin, Rust Movie Productions, and other parties are months late on a payment. The amount is confidential that is due to Hutchins and his son under their settlement. According to Panish, they are considering their options, which include suing for breach of agreement or resuming their original civil suit. So,
oh my goodness.
Yeah, and I'm sure that they don't want to have to do that if they don't have to, but like at the same time, like it's going to just cost Baldwin and everybody else more money if they if the civil suit gets brought again because if they breach the contract, right? Because if they don't pay, they're technically in breach right now. It's just crazy.
Well, they are. I mean, they are without a doubt in breach right now. If what I'm reading in the media is true, but what I would like to know is Disney Dreams. By the way, love you so much. Would Alec have to pay Matthew directly or insurance? I don't actually know the answer to that. Do you so Alec was the producer on this whole shebang. He was the producer on this entire thing. How much insurance? Maybe there's, oh God, it would be so cool if there was a Pepino that knew about insurance, because I don't think insurance covers something like this.
I think it covers up to like a certain amount. Like the thing I'm referencing in my head is like in the Murdoch case, because those guys are all like civil attorneys, and there's a lot of testimony about how, sometimes they'll take like the insurance settlement. Like for example, the lawyer for Mallory Beach was going to sue Alex Murdaugh for like not just what the insurance payment was going to be, but like he said that Alex had to pay out of pocket, right? And so that was like the whole basis for Alec committing those murders, was to like put that off and like make it so that he was not, that he was like he was not as good of a target for a personal lawsuit like that. So I think it depends. And I think the amount that we're talking about here, I'm guessing that it's some chunk of it's going to come out of Alex's ass.
Well, I mean, he settled high and fast, and I knew he would. I had no doubt that he would.
I think like with the calculus,
there's no arguing. It's like, dude, you shot my wife.
Yeah.
On a set that you set up that was supposed to be secured. Of course, that's why he settled so fast. I never thought in a million years that he would stiff him on the payments.
Yeah.
I
think like the calculus that Alec might be sort of playing a game of chicken here, because like what Hutchins' attorney has to be thinking about is, if Alec goes to trial and loses, like his net worth goes down kind of considerably, and he's not worth as much in terms of like, if they try to, try to make the civil suit go again, whereas like if they just leave it as is, they have that figure locked in and they can at least try to garnish money somehow. So it's like, I don't really know how that world works, because I've never worked in like plaintiff's attorney type stuff, but like that's my impression.
I'm right there with you. Like the only time I've ever seen that done is in Florida with the OJ case, like we talked about last week.
Yeah.
That Florida is the only case where they can't garnish your wages. So I am as lost as you are. I never ever expected him to not pay his down payment to Matthew Hutchins. Give me a break, man.
There's so many like outstanding issues in this trial, and Rempire State of Mind had a good question about like the immunity for Hannah Gutierrez. There's a transport order that was just posted by Hideaway JJ, or JJ Hideaway, sorry, Hidden Hideaway JJ, who's been really on it with posting all the docs, and I think they're in the chat. I can't remember if they're smaller Pepino. Anyway, sorry, but like the other thing too is like, just trying to figure out, like, is the news of like them not, like Alec not paying the settlement gonna possibly come in? I don't think it's been litigated, but there's just so many things like that like could be interesting wrinkles in the trial if they somehow come up inadvertently. But did you see the transport order that was just posted like within like this weekend for Hannah Gutierrez? So it sounds like she is going to testify, or at least they're going to bring her to be available to testify, and she's scheduled on the 13th.
Dude, I was going to ask you about that. Does that mean she's required to testify, or because I did not understand that at all. All I saw was a release that said that she was called to testify. Does she have to testify?
Well, it gets into this weird area of immunity stuff, but like, I think she can assert her. She might assert her fifth just based on the appeal stuff, and I think she was also there's also some talk of like there was an motion practice about like an in-camera review of some agreement between Gutierrez and Baldwin. So like, I don't really know exactly what's going on. It's up in the air. But like the other thing that she doesn't, even if like the judge doesn't accept her assertion of the Fifth Amendment, like she doesn't, they can't really compel her other than like they can hold her in contempt and put her in jail or something like that. But she's already in jail, so I don't even know how that would work.
Well, no, I wouldn't. Okay, I don't know how this works. Would they grant her immunity? Like it's like we need you to testify. I have no idea how this works. If any Pepinos out there understand how this works, because she's not going to say very good things about the way the set was run. If they had the entire camera crew that left that morning because they felt they weren't safe, she's not going to have anything good to say. Is she? Can you require somebody to testify?
Yeah, I mean, there's like the state could try to like cut her like, and I haven't seen anything in the court file or posted anywhere about this, but like the state could just like grant her total immunity, and that would make it so that her Fifth Amendment waiver is a moot point because the state's like not going to prosecute her no matter what for that crime. They just give her blanket immunity. That's not what happens when you testify. Generally, what happens when you testify and you're subpoenaed by the state is you get what's called use immunity. And I've tried to explain this a couple times and it's like very complicated, but like, it just means that like anything that you say in your testimony, the state can't use that to prosecute. They can't take your statements in trial and then use that to like prosecute for some other crime or something like that comes up. But
she's already in jail though.
Right.
And Disney Dream said judge said no immunity for her. Hello Pepino said the judge declined granting Hannah youth immunity. So I don't know where this really leaves I don't know where this leaves anybody.
Yeah, I mean, I think my impression is just like based on like the rumblings I've heard is that it sounds like what's really weird is like I don't know what Baldwin could offer her, but it sounds like they might have like some kind of agreement or understanding, which I don't even really know like how Hannah could like shade her testimony to be particularly helpful to Baldwin. I don't really know. Maybe it's something about like who gave him the gun or something like that, but she wasn't even in the church at the time of the shooting, according to her testimony. So it's like, I don't know, it's very puzzling. It's going to be a real X factor in a trial full of X factors.
Well, it is time to discuss what we need to discuss. Who handed him the effing gun? And why are people lying about this? Did Hannah hand him the gun? Apparently, no, she didn't because she was not allowed in the church. Did Dave Halls hand her the gun? Apparently, he says no, he did not hand her the gun. He took a plea deal, which I don't understand why you would take a plea deal so quickly if you had literally nothing to do with this. So who handed him the gun?
Yeah, and I think the other thing about Halls that, and I don't know if I have this detail exactly correct, but I think we talked about this a little bit, like just in between just in the last few days, is Hall's testimony at trial, at Hannah's trial, made it seem like there was some uncertainty about who handed Alec the gun or whether Alec took it himself. There's actually at least three options, right? It's either Hannah or it's either Halls, maybe Hannah. I can't remember. Anyway, I'm getting confused, or Alec took it himself off the table. But like, there's another hearing subsequent to the criminal trial for like an OSHA fine hearing. And I think that we were talking about how Halls like changed his testimony about the gun handoff at that or something like that. So there's been at least a couple different versions there, but that wasn't a criminal thing. It was about like a fine. So, yeah, it just seems like.
Well, apparently OSHA doesn't F around.
Yeah, it was like 140.
They snapped them with the biggest fine they had.
Yeah, 140K, I think, somewhere around there.
Oh yeah, OSHA wasn't effing around. I just don't understand. Because like Leo, just like you, I have been listening to every statement, and I can't figure. Alec keeps saying Hannah handed him the gun. And then I hear that Halls handed him the gun. And then we've got Halls talking to the police saying, oh, I didn't check all the chambers. And then I don't know where this leaves Hannah. What is it? And then I just want to point out, we've got some chick. Hold on. I've got her name written down here. Who was disposing of cartridges in the
gun. God,
dude, what on earth is going on right now? Like there is a chick that before the cops got there, got all
they unloaded the gun, right?
And put him in the garbage can.
Yeah. Boy, that's not a very effective place to stash the bullets you're trying to get rid of. And the police found them, obviously, right?
No, I don't actually know that if they did, because I don't think she admitted to it until several days later. Right. I hope one of these Pepinos can help me out here, because I know that I'm not crazy. Like that actually it did happen. She disposed of the rounds, and the cops said, why are you disposing of well, they said props because they cost money, and they said, why are you throwing away things that cost money?
Yeah, and it just seems so haphazard. Sorry to interrupt.
Hey, I'll be right back, Leo.
Oh sure, yeah. I was just gonna say, like, the other thing that I was just thinking about is how Hannah had like a partial box of shells from like a previous project that she brought on to the Rust set. And so, I think there's like a lot of like trying to track where the live rounds came from. And it's like funny that Alec made like a whole conspiracy theory about it, when I think it's pretty clear that they came from like previous stock that Gutierrez had. And, they interviewed the gun owner where they bought like the dummies from, and he seemed like, he didn't. And so I appreciate you guys clearing up. I haven't had a time like to read all the litigation. I work on like legal research stuff like all the time. I work for the attorney generals up here. So I've been doing like this project where I've been researching like the local like liquor laws here and stuff like that. So I've just been like knee deep in legal stuff, and I've been trying to catch up on this, but like when that's like kind of what you do all day long. Anyway, I've been doing my best to catch up, but I really appreciate, folks like Disney Dreams and Hidden Hideaway JJ for like making it easy for me to be as caught up as I could be. But Disney Dreams saying that she can plead the fifth, and the judge said that they wouldn't hold her in contempt for doing that. And I think that makes sense. My point about the use immunity, Disney Dreams and other folks, is that I think that's like an automatic grant if you get a state subpoena. Like the state's not supposed to like take like what you say, but they can still prosecute you. That doesn't mean that you have what's called derivative use immunity, which means that like if you have derivative use immunity, they can't like investigate something that you say is like, basically it just means that it's like much more difficult for them to go after you for anything that comes up in trial. And then there's like blanket immunity, which is like a deal that you cut with prosecutors. So I think that attaches, although I'm not as familiar with New Mexico law, but yeah, I did see that had been litigated. In smaller Pepino had a point about the other witnesses in the church. Dave handed Alec the gun and said cold gun. That seems to be like the version that like most people agree on. And I think that.
Hey Leo, I'm back.
Yeah.
I just want to jump in here. Okay, a cold gun. I am still baffled by this. I was under the assumption that a cold gun meant there were no rounds of any kind in this revolver.
Right.
And it is a revolver. I'm talking about no dummy rounds, no blanks, nothing. Nobody can seem to give me a straight answer on what a cold gun is. And so if somebody says, I'm handing you a cold gun, I don't understand the disconnect. Like, because I have heard so many different stories on what a cold gun means. Oh, it means there's only dummy rounds in there. Oh,
Right.
it means there's nothing in there. Oh, it means that there's nothing in there that will produce a charge. So I don't really understand why people can't get their stories straight here.
Yeah, because I mean the thing that like makes a big difference there is if it means like no types of like rounds, even fake rounds in there, then it should be immediately obvious to anybody holding the weapon that there are some kind of rounds in there, right? So that would make a difference in terms of like whether or not Alec was acting recklessly. At least on some level, it could be a decisive factor if it gets to that point. But yeah, that is really
the thing is that if there are dummy rounds in there, I don't know a lot about movie sets, but this is what I do know. Is that there has to be some kind of, I don't know, plexiglass is the right word. There's got to be if you are dealing with rounds, there has got to be a glass plate in front of the people that are filming. If there is a round in there, just because I don't know a lot about what happened on The Crow, but
right.
there's still a charge in there, and they you don't want to just to be on the safe side, you're supposed to have a piece of bulletproof glass in front of the shot, and it makes it more complicated for the fact that this wasn't even supposed to be filmed. Like they weren't even this wasn't even part of the set at all. They were just practicing.
One thing that I came up in the Stephanopoulos interview that I don't think it's emphasized enough is like right after Alec said that he didn't pull the trigger, he said, I'd never pull the trigger and point a gun at somebody, which is like, I mean, I think that it's sort of like such an inherent contradiction.
That comes right back to PR 101, baby. Because you can't, that tells me that he knows better. And he admitted that I would know. That means that he was taught. So he's coming forward and saying he was taught, whether it's on a movie set or whether it's in real life, you do not. He's just refraining exactly what the rules of firearms are.
Yeah,
that is what I don't understand as to, because what he did was he had his finger on the trigger, right, and he pulled the hammer back, but he goes on George Stephanopoulos and says, I would never do that. I was quote unquote taught not to do that.
And I think like it's interesting to get into these details, and I think it might be important for the jury, but like I think we might be getting a little bit too wrapped around the axle, because like it could be argued that it was like reckless for them to be, like I said, using any sort of like actual functioning firearm during that sort of blocking scene. Like they could have been using like a replica. There's really no reason.
Oh, they could have been using a plastic firearm, but they weren't. And because of the fact that they weren't, and he didn't, and that's fine. Like if they wanted to use a real gun, that's their decision. But you still have to take the precautions, and they didn't do that.
I wanted to touch on a couple of great comments in the chat. Mark Pepino saying that Hall said that Hannah must have reloaded the gun when she was sneaking around, but nobody saw her, not even Alec, which is an interesting point. And it also touches on like the whole vibe of that thing. Like, it was during the whole, like right in the middle of like the whole COVID era. And so like on a certain level, like there's just so many little factors like that. Like even doing that movie, like trying to get it done on the cheap with like really limited, having your armor double up, and doing it during COVID. I mean, even that could be argued as being like something that's like reckless and part of, the kind of thing that would come in terms of like Alec's state of mind, so yeah, there's just so many things like that like paint a very vivid picture. And Disney Dreams had a comment about they all seem to be covering themselves from other civil issues down the track after the criminal trial, and that is a good point. And it's like sometimes why you'll get these sort of discrepancies or things that don't really make sense is because everybody's trying to CYA. I mean, I think that does make sense.
Everybody is trying to CYA, and I'm starting to think ahead of the jury selection, and I did a little research, and there's a lot of people in New Mexico that carry firearms, and they're not going to want to see, somebody messing up everything that they've worked for. So I think the jury selection is absolutely crucial on this. They are not going to want people that own firearms on this jury, period.
Yeah, that's going to be really interesting. And it's like one of the things that's, again, like an interesting subplot of this whole thing is the accelerated trial schedule. I think it goes from the 9th to the 19th, but there's a couple weekend days in there. So it's going to be like 8 court days or something like that with 1 day for selection. So, like normally like jury selection is kind of like a snooze unless you're like really into all the details. But I think this is going to like even day one is going to be really interesting, it's going to be 2 days. That's crazy. It's still in the real to me.
I don't like, dude, that's why I don't understand. And I was hoping you could explain this. I didn't know that they had like I didn't know you could be like, this trial is going to take 7 days. I thought it was kind of like open-ended. Are you telling me that they just can they just can say, no, it's going to last this long?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a lot different. It depends on like the exposure and like, it depends on the judge. Like and I think most judges, especially these days, they have so many other things going on that they have a pretty rigid schedule, and that's why they do all this briefing beforehand, at least in theory, is to like figure out like, what your witnesses are going to be and estimate how long it's going to take. And they stick to the schedule. And I think this judge especially is pretty much like a hard ass. And I think it's very likely that it's going to stick to the schedule. Now, and his exposure is only 18 months. That's the other thing we have to remember is it's a pretty low level felony. So it like doesn't warrant being a long trial because he doesn't have that much criminal exposure. 18 months max, right? Like in the minimum for a felony is a year. So it's not that high of a charge, even though it sort of has a lot of consequences. Like in something like the OJ case, there's a lot of different things going on there. Like in Ito, in that case, it's just such a classic reference point, was like such a, he was just like way too patient. And so in OJ's exposure was much greater in that case. So that's why it went on for a billion years. But yeah, I think
I'm sorry. I am a little curious about that. How does that happen? Like did OJ have a set schedule and they just went on for a billion years? I don't understand.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the exact. It was like my understanding is like it evolved quite a bit, and there's so many different things that happened. Like, because you have to remember, like at the beginning of the trial, like nobody really knew that like the whole Furman thing was going to be an issue, and so what ended up happening is there's a bunch of different things like that, and especially the Furman thing kind of like kicked off like a trial within a trial about the LAPD and all the different stuff that had happened there. And then also like the stuff that they got into with the crime lab, like the admissions that Barry Scheck and Peter Neufeld got in that case from Mazzola and Fung, the technicians, and their whole, it was just so damaging that it just made it so that they, because their client had so much exposure and the Ito was so lenient with granting more time. I think the originals, my recollection is it was like originally scheduled for like 3 or 4 months, but it just kept going and going and going. And people like, embedded in the trial just basically started calling it this fucking case because it just kept elongating. I think it went like 9 or 10 months
So it was Judge Ito that was like, oh, let's just keep doing this.
He's the gatekeeper. I mean, he's the one that should be telling lawyers, like, don't make the same arguments over and over again. Like, he's the one that should be keeping. But my understanding is, just from what other people have said about him as a legal professional, he was just like, his biggest flaw was that he was too patient and he just let people argue and he didn't want to interrupt, which, can be good for some things. But in a case like that, I mean, it just went off the rails,
Yeah, I just didn't. I didn't realize that you could say the trial is going to last this long. Period.
Yeah, it happens in most criminal trials. Is a very strict schedule, and like sometimes it can get changed if something really weird happens, but like generally not. I mean, and especially like in anything that's like not like a major exposure for your client's liberty.
Can you imagine if a Pepino was called for jury duty? Just one day they get a letter in the mail. Hey, you're called for jury duty. Dude, I think he's going to take the stand because I think he is that arrogant and he will not listen to his lawyers. He's obviously not listening to his PR firm, which we talked about earlier. I think he's going to take the stand.
Yeah, and that has the potential to get weird, but I just like knowing this judge, like I just like the impression I got her, and she did Hannah's trial as well, and she gave Hannah, like if you listen to her hand Hannah down her sentence, like she's a no BS type of lady, and she's been on the bench for a long time, so she's seasoned, and she's not going to get buffaloed by Alec Spiro or his white shoe folks. I mean, I think. My guess is it's going to stick to the schedule, but you just never know. I guess I don't know. And there's a lot of really interesting comments about like the comings and goings with like the shells and whether or not they're in trash. Mo Roger saying that Hannah had 2 female assistants that never get mentioned, and that there's a police interview with them on YouTube. I need to watch that. That's interesting. And Jay Wilkes also mentioning that they can't believe that a drug and alcohol test wasn't done on Alec. His names. It seems irresponsible.
I mean, dude, I am as shocked as you are. But again, we're not, famous actors. There's in my opinion, there's absolutely no reason why they should not have done a drug and alcohol test. That's insane. Considering it was right after lunch. I don't know what, dude, this case, it's such a mess, man. But the timing, Baldwin's comments about the shooting, that he didn't pull the trigger, his explanation was, let's wait for the process to finish. It's very vague and unclear. So it's actually kind of stunning about the miraculous discharge of the gun, is actually what took her life. There's I don't even know what kind of PR person would be able to defend that at all. Like he obviously went rogue. That's what we call it, going rogue.
Yeah, something. I mean, I think it. Just based on a couple of incidents that we already touched on, one thing that I wanted to bring up because I so in the comments thread, requested topics. I'm a Sleuth for Truth mentioned that we should talk about the SAG guidelines, which are a good resource, and so I've got them up here real quick. This is the Screen Actors Guild Theatrical Firearms Safety Tips guidelines, and so use simulated or dummy weapons whenever possible. Didn't do that.
No, didn't do that.
Loaded and deadly. Nope. Unless you're actually performing or rehearsing, the property master must secure all firearms.
Didn't do that.
Yeah. The property master or armorer should carefully train you in the safe use of any firearm you handle. Be honest if you have no knowledge about guns, or do not overstate qualifications. I mean, that was a huge fail because he was texting and like ignoring Hannah during the safety briefings. So follow all instructions given by a qualified instructor. It's like everyone.
He didn't listen to those at all.
Never engaged in horseplay.
He knew more than them, apparently.
Yeah, or he was like distracted. Who knows? who knows what goes on in that man's head? He's such a nutball. But never engage in horseplay with any firearms or other weapons. It's like every one of these they violated. It's like, do not let others handle the gun for any reason. That's how it
works with firearms. Like you can't, like with firearm safety, if you violate one rule, that's not going to kill somebody. Yep. If you violate all the rules, that's how somebody gets killed. And he violated every single rule that there was. And I'm looking at this right now. He violated all of these rules too.
Yeah, never point a firearm at anybody, including yourself. Always cheat the shot by aiming it to the right or left of a target character. If asked to point and shoot directly at a living target, consult with the property master or armorer for the prescribed safety procedures. Fail. It's just like every one of these. I mean, like, what were we, like 5 for 5, 6 for 6 now? It's just like, it's going to be interesting. I mean, maybe there's some way that I think Aspire's general strategy is going to just make things confusing and try to like muck it up and make it chaotic. But I mean, when you look at these rules or these guidelines, and the other one that BMC or B McCoy 16 mentioned is, there's Cooper's rules for general gun safety, which is, just like our very simple list of like 4 rules. I guess I could share that one really quick, but it's like, this is like the general rule 1, all guns are always loaded. Rule 2, never let the muzzle cover anything you are not prepared to destroy.
Yes.
Rule 3, keep your finger off the trigger till your sights are on the target.
Yes. You put your finger, above it. No, there's no argument on that. And I'm trying to figure out, I don't believe it's different on a movie set. I just don't.
I mean, seeing those, I think that I'm glad that I eventually got to there's so many interesting notes in there, and I really wanted to, get
pull that back up, by the way.
Sure. Yeah. I really wanted to get to some of those because like that's the screen. I mean, this is specifically for, the rules for Screen Actors Guild and,
oh yeah. Pull that shit back up. Yeah. Sorry guys. I have a really bad mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah,
trying to make this real big here.
All right, let's look at this. Hold on. All right. So where did you get this?
It's just off the Screen Actors Guild's website. And somebody mentioned it to me. This is off actorsequity.org resources. So it's right off their website. Yeah.
The prop master. The prop master or armor. Was Dave Halls the prop master? I don't think he was. Was he?
Let me look that up real quick.
It doesn't actually matter because nobody can agree on whether or not he's the one that handed Alec the gun. I love that part, by the way.
Yeah, he was the first AD, first assistant director, so I'm not sure who exactly was
he was not. Okay, so no, he wasn't.
I can look that up real quick though.
You have no knowledge about guns.
But that's interesting that there was
your qualifications. Yeah, he didn't. He didn't take his.
Oh yeah,
he did not take any firearms lessons. Let's be honest.
Yeah. Yeah, somebody mentioned earlier in a comment that it's Sarah Zachary was the property master. And I'm sure somebody's commented that.
She's the one that dumped all the bullets into the garbage can. Because that's totally normal.
Yeah. Yeah, somebody mentioned that earlier. You guys are on it. Know all the ins and outs. But it's like, it's a... I don't know.
Who on earth would dump ammo into a garbage can when when somebody just got shot? I can't get over that.
Yeah. It's more Pepino commenting that's a tight schedule. Shocked it's like 9 days. I think it's like either 9 or 8. But yeah. And then it's also commenting that Spain could deny Alec's passport for a serious violent felony. How ironic.
Spain actually could.
Yeah, and also chiming in that like courts are never generally open-ended. They always have a tight schedule with a little wiggle room, and that's my experience. It's like hard to say for like every different jurisdiction, and I come from such a weird jurisdiction that it's like I try not to like extrapolate. Alaska is just like such a weird, like we just don't, like I said earlier, we don't have counties, and there's just so many different things about like our state that's like totally different. But I'm assuming that like that sort of thing, like judges' schedules are generally pretty consistent, unless you're like in LA during the O.J. Simpson case. 8 months, yeah, smaller, yeah. So yeah, we're rounding up to about 2 hours, and
yeah, we for some reason end up doing this for 2 hours, but okay, guys. All right, so the 9th is when they're doing jury selection. The 10th is when they do their opening statements. We are going to get together, and we are all going to get together after the opening statements on the 10th. Leo, does that sound like a plan?
Yeah, and I think I should be flexible. Like, if I need to take off work early or something like that, that would be fine. Because it's such a wild. It's like a Super Bowl.
Chris, your paying job. We're dealing with Alec Baldwin. I'm sorry. No, yeah. I just think that I am dying to hear the opening statements, because he has incriminated himself against everything his PR firm told him. And he went in there confidently saying, I didn't pull the trigger. And I'm dying to see how his lawyers are going to try to finagle this. I'm dying.
Yeah, I was just like looking through the requested topics just to make sure that we hit most of them. I think the one that like we didn't hit that we'll have to save for probably after the trial is like the pregnancy timeline. There's some good visual aids and we can go over that. And like, I did a deep dive that touched on it. And so I would love to revisit that, but I think that's probably like a post-trial topic. But I don't know if what else you wanted to hit. Like,
I just wanted you guys to know that everything on the subreddit is true.
Yeah.
Just everything. We're not crazy, no matter what people say. She wore a moon bump for all of her pregnancies except for one. No question about that. This is not this isn't over yet. This is still an ongoing story. So you guys just hang tight, and I'm sorry I can't give you like too much more information, but I need to protect the sources that have come forward that only came forward because they're worried about the children, as we all are. So
yeah, I mean, I think that's sort of what animates a lot of like what goes on this subreddit right now. And like the other thing I just kind of wanted to touch on briefly before we sign off for the night is like there's so much stuff like coming at us right now, and like I think like one of the things we're trying to figure out how to do is to like find new people to work with, like, and just like making so that the sub has like more people working on it. But it's like it's such an odd time that there's so much, like, you wouldn't even believe like the weird mod mails we get from like, so it's like really hard to know like who's who right now. It's just there's so many moving parts that you just kind of have to weather the storm, for like the next 10 days, 2 weeks. So yeah.
I mean, we appreciate you guys so much. And feel free to send us mod mail at any time. We've had to deal with some trolls, as everybody does, but we seem to have a really good I hate to say the word community because Hillary always says that word, and that I don't think she even knows what that word means. So you guys, if you have any questions, you want us to talk about anything, let us know, and just let's all just make sure we take off work on July 10th, baby.
I'm super excited. All right, well, I guess we'll reconvene then. This was a lot of fun. Really great comments. I always really appreciate that. Like, not like a troll or a weirdo in the bunch, which is just so, it's just really great. It is a great community. It is. I don't know why that is so weird to say, but anyway, yeah.
All right. Thank you guys. I even told my nephews about this, and I'm surprised they didn't pop up and say something crazy. If you guys, have any questions, shoot us a mod mail. If you have any, improvements that we could do, we're always here for you. Yep. We just want to make sure that we are, covering all the bases here, because this is a big trial. I don't think there's been a trial like that. I don't think there's ever been a trial like this that I have ever imagined. This is going to be crazy.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to watch the coverage. So, all right, we'll touch base in a couple days then. Assuming the world doesn't end between now and then. So.
All right, I love you guys, and if you guys need anything, just reach out to me. You know how to reach out to me. Just PM me if you need anything. Love you guys.
Right. Have a good night.